You are watching the Bulls Report by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and today's show is presented by Prize Picks. But coming up on today's show, we got a big-time update on the 2026 NBA Draft, where NBA insider Brett Siegel is reporting that the Bulls are trying to move up into the top 10 and specifically land Illinois guard Keaton Wagler. So we'll break down if it makes sense for the Bulls to try to trade up into the top 10, and then if Keaton Wagler is the prospect that they want, should he be the prospect they want? We'll break it down on today's show, but specifically what Brett Siegel had to say, saying if the Bulls were to trade up into the top 10, multiple personnel have stated that they believe such a move would be made for Illinois guard Keaton Wagler. Now, flatly, I am all the way in on this move if I were running the Chicago Bulls. I think Keaton Wagler is special. I think we have a big four in this draft class, but he is right next in that next group. I think he would be number 5 on my big board right now. He's an elite offensive guard, and I think a lot of people are concerned about the physicality, his frame, really how athletic he is. But I think with what he did in the Big Ten this past season was flat out special. I mean, being a lead guard on an Illinois team that made it all the way, dominated the Big Ten, and also he's got a cool story. He was not even a top 300 recruit coming out of high school. Brad Underwood took a chance on him and it ended up paying out big time. I mean, 18 points a game, 5.1 rebounds, 4.2 assists, and a very, very efficient shooter, shooting 40% from downtown on 6 attempts a game. And his shooting is just ridiculous. I mean, he is a great off-the-dribble shooter, but he can also be a catch-and-shoot guy. Now, I think with Keaton Wagler and him developing his game, he's got to find more of an in-between game. I think that would really benefit him because everything is either at the basket or he's stepping back and trying to get a three ball. Now, analytically, that's every analytical nerd's dream. But I think when you get to the playoff time, you got to have that go-to mid-range shot. Now, talk about him being a great shooter. I mean, it is almost, underselling it because he's fantastic. On jump shots, his true shooting percentage, 56.4, 38.6 overall at the rim. Great finisher there, 56.3% true shooting, layups 57%, and dribble jumpers 37.7%, which is one of the highest in the class, and his true shooting percentage 54. And also catch and shoot jumpers, very good as well, 40.8%, 61.2% true shooting percentage. Now, some pros and cons with Wagler, maybe if you guys didn't watch him too much at Illinois this past season. Now, outside shooting ability is fantastic. A 40% three-point shooter. Also, a lot of those shots did come off the dribble, so they weren't just the prototypical wide-open catch-and-shoot threes. He's great at getting downhill. Even though he's not the most physical player, he does use his body really well in the lane to create space. He's got the same deceleration move that we see guys like Steph Castle using in the playoffs right now, and his offensive IQ is great. He's always making the right reads, making the right passes. Now, some negatives with him, his frame, a little smaller, a little lighter in the hips, but like his natural size, like he's still a 6'6" guard, good long wingspan. Now, not the best athlete in the world, which is a big reason why he wasn't a highly touted high school recruit, and also defensive stamina. And I do think with a guy like Wagler, I'm not saying he's like a Josh Giddey type of defender. I think he's a better defender than that, just with his, size. He does do a good job just getting his hands in passing lanes, but definitely his defensive stamina could use some work. Now, Keaton Wagler for me is 5th on my big board. I really believe in him. I think his game will translate to the next level because he does have an NBA style of game. And I think with the floor space more, I think he could walk in the league right away and be an 18, 20 a game scorer. Now, and maybe the physicality will take him a couple years to get to that point when he does average, an insane scoring output of like 22 and, 8 assists a game. But I think it's his second best offensive guard in this draft class outside of Darren Peters. And honestly, just from a natural skill perspective, he might be number 1. Like just ball handler check, shooting ability check, off the dribble, all of that. He checks all of those boxes. So talking about the Bulls trading up, it's probably going to cost you a lot because you're trying to package pick 15, move up into the top 10. Well, what if you send pick 15 and Josh Giddey to the Atlanta Hawks? The Hawks still need a lead guard, and with all the wings they have, with Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jonathan Kuminga, a guy like Giddey could make some sense there in Atlanta. They also have the defensive talent around him where I think they could hide him defensively, and then you just throw in Corey Kispert and Buddy Hield to match salaries. So I'll ask you guys this. Would you accept this trade? A for accept, D for decline. You'd move off Josh Giddey, and you necessarily just get an upgrade at that spot in Keaton Wagler. I would do it. I would really consider this if I was the Chicago Bulls, but you guys let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Now, I do want to give a massive shout out to our good friends at Prize Picks. And if you guys use that promo code HMA, we'll hook you guys up with $50 instantly on lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. The app is really easy to use. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Prize Picks is available in most states, including California, Texas, Florida, Minnesota, New York, and Illinois. And Prize Picks makes watching my favorite sporting events that much more enjoyable as I follow my lineup throughout the entire game. And for tonight, Game 4, Knicks up 2-1 on the Spurs, where this is the lineup we're rolling with. $10 pays out $110. But if you guys want to fade those picks or ride with those picks, just do so at our good friends over there at Prize Picks. And they also have a new social feature where you guys can follow your friends and others on the app like you would on any other social media platform. You guys can follow me on the app at Pat Sieps, PATSIEPS, to see all my lineups there. But sign up for Prize Picks with promo code HMA. Get hooked up with $50 instantly on lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are, probably against this trade, I would have to assume. But I want to use this graphic as almost an argument as a reason why the Bulls should do this. Because I do think if you brought in Keaton Wagler, and you had him, Caleb Wilson, and Modest Buzelis as the trio you're building around, like, that fires me the hell up. Now, this team would probably have some lapses defensively early. Like, I'm not saying this team's going to go rip off 45, 50 wins year one, but down the line, this could be an absolute wagon in the Eastern Conference. Like, I believe in Buzelis. I'm obviously a Wilson believer. I'm a Wagler believer. You just need to get the right piece around him. I would like Trey Jones as that veteran just to help kind of mold and be a connector offensively and defensively. And then you would have the bench of still young guys like Leonard Miller and Noah Senge that you can build around. Now, you probably are looking at the center position. Jalen Smith could use an upgrade there. But what if you do all this in the draft and then you hit up free agency, and then that would be a spot for the Bulls? I want them to overpay for a center. Robert Williams, Mitchell Robinson. These two guys, I would be more than willing for the Bulls to say, hey, Mitchell Robinson, go win that ring with the Knicks, and then we'll offer you 4 for $100. Because I think having that type of center who can protect the rim, be a lob threat for Wagler as well, and then defensively, with Buzelis, Wilson or Boozer, and then Mitchell Robinson, you would be fantastic. Robert Williams plays similar to Mitch Rob, but then also Walker Kessler. Like, if you want to take him out of Utah, he's a free agent this upcoming year. You could potentially just offer him 4 for $120, $30 a year. Would be an overpay, but that's where the Bulls are set up so nicely that they can overpay for players. Now, the question is, should the Bulls, maybe it takes more than Josh Giddey to move up to pick number 8. Should the Bulls be willing to attach a 2027 or 2028 first-round pick to move up? I think the question comes down to what you think about Keaton Wagler. If you think he can be an SGA, a Tyrese Halliburton type of player, I think you should. Even an Austin Reeves level of player, because everybody killed the Atlanta Hawks or the New Orleans Pelicans last year for making that Derek Queen trade, giving up an unprotected first. That's because the 2026 draft class, we all knew early is generational. Well, the 2027 draft class, not great. And plus, if you're the Bulls with the new lottery system, you're not guaranteed if you're horrible to get a top 5 pick anymore. Like, it's kind of just a crapshoot. So if you believe Wagler could end up being SGA Tyrese Halliburton, then hell yeah, I'd be willing to include a future first-round pick down the line. So let's talk about some other trade options for the Bulls. If you believe Wagler is going to go 5th to the Clippers, you might have to call them. What if you offer them pick 15, Josh Giddey, and a top 10 protected pick in 2027? This I would do in a heartbeat, because this still gives you the chance, if the Bulls are bad, or maybe you get lucky in the lottery, for that pick to convey. But I would be willing to say this conveys to pick 11, 12, or 13. I'd be willing to attach that next year and pick number 15 to move all the way up to pick number 5. And then you also just throw Josh Giddey in the deal to just sweeten it for the Los Angeles Clippers. And it all comes down to what you really think of Keaton Wagler. If you believe in him, if you think he's going to work on the NBA, you should be willing to honestly remove the protections off that first-round pick and be willing to move up. So I've been making the case. I don't want the Bulls to give up any future draft capital. But the more I start thinking about it, you got so lucky with the Portland Trailblazers pick conveying, you getting a top 4 pick. They're almost in a position to be aggressive in this draft with packaging a couple guys, packaging a couple assets, and move all the way up into the top 7. So how about the Brooklyn Nets? I doubt that Brooklyn would want to move off the 6th overall pick. If anything, I think they would want to move up. But the Brooklyn Nets, keep in mind, with pick 15 involved, Josh Giddey, and a first-round pick for next season, you just throw in Terrence Mann to help match salaries. Why would the Nets potentially want to do this? Well, the Brooklyn Nets don't have a first-round pick in 2027. Their first-round pick is going to the Houston Rockets. There is nothing the Nets can do this offseason where they are going to be a playoff team next year. So if they just want to have at least another pick from the Chicago Bulls, that's something I could see them being willing to do. But what if the Bulls, like Bryson Graham kind of alluded to, what if they just want to take on a bad contract to move up? I think the Kings would be open to this. DeRozan still on the a deal for one more year for $25 million. Well, what if you just include Josh Giddey in that and you get them their point guard of the future after they messed up the Halliburton Fox situation, and you just tack on 2 second-round picks? I think the Kings would have slight interest in this. So there are easy avenues here, but I do think the Bulls, especially if it's for a guy like Wagler, I want to include Josh Giddey in this trade. Now, I was saying like the Bulls should be in no rush to move off Josh Giddey. I think he could help a lot with the development of some of the young talent on the Bulls. But if you go get Keaton Wagler, I want the ball in his hands all the time. And Josh Giddey would just kind of make that harder for that to happen, so I'd be willing to include him. Now, also, Brett Siegel was reporting a couple days ago that the Bulls also have interest in Kingston Fleming's Michael Brown. So let's just say they do trade up to pick number 8 with Atlanta, and Keaton Wagler ends up going 5. I would assume Fleming's or Michael Brown would end up being the pick and the other guard they end up taking. But I'd be willing to do it. But you guys let me know. Would you trade up for Keaton Wagler? I'm a big fan of his game. I just think it's overthinking it. Like, think about the basics of basketball. Can you shoot? Well, can you catch and shoot? Can you shoot off the dribble? Check, check. Are you a good passer? He's a great passer. Can you handle the basketball? He can handle the basketball. And if that matches up with production, which he had last season, it's just one of those things. Don't overthink it. He's going to be a guy in the NBA, so I'd be willing to move up and attach future draft capital to move up from pick number 15. But you guys, let me know your thoughts down below, and we'll get on out of here. As always, go Bulls.